women are very good leaders because they are more emotionally connected. And if you can be like, women like to enjoy the journey more than men a lot of times, or at least a masculine and feminine energy, right? That's kind of the basis of it. Usually the masculine energy is go get it, do it, master this, be the best in the world, where the feminine energy likes to enjoy things. They like the smaller things in life. They like to be present. But you can learn either of those things. But women are naturally better at being present. They're naturally better at connecting. They're naturally better at being able to understand somebody's emotions.
Hi everybody, I'm your host Morgan Ruiz Carrera and welcome to Way of Living Podcast, where I usually interview amazing women about their success and how they follow their dreams. But in today's episode, I'm joined by Kevin Palmieri, who is the host of the Hyperconscious podcast. And we are going to talk about overcoming low self-esteem, how to reach your goals and your dreams, and when do you actually know you're successful. I would love to know your views on this and your experience. So if you would like to comment down below or to reach me on different social media platforms, all the links are down below. And please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to see more and more interviews like that. Enjoy! Hi Kevin, how are you?
I am very well. How are you doing, Morgan? Thank you so very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I'm very good, actually. So I would like you to introduce yourself. That's what I do. Usually I ask my guests to tell us about the background and a little bit introduction about yourself, what you've been doing before podcasting, and yes, who you are.
Sure. So I am Kevin Palmieri. I am the creator and the host of the Hyperconscious podcast. So Alan, who you guys have heard of probably last week or whenever, he is the co-host of the show. So him and I sit down and we interview some of the most successful entrepreneurs and authors and speakers and coaches and musicians and athletes in the world to pull back the curtain on what success really took. So the highs, the lows, the habits, the stuff that nobody sees, the important stuff. We always want to pull back the curtain on what's inside of the mind. That's why it's called the Hyperconscious podcast. So besides the podcast, I'm also a professional speaker. Alan and I travel around and do speeches. I'm also a one-on-one peak performance coach who helps people get over their limiting beliefs and helps them live their dream life. And I've recently started doing one-on-one podcast coaching because when I look back on the person that I was before I started podcasting has changed my life probably more than anything. Just not only from having it, but the relationships that I've built, the opportunities that have come from it, the fear chasing and getting out of my comfort zone that I've had to do. It has made me the man I am today. And I want to help other people scale their impact and grow their businesses through podcasting. You podcast, so you know how much fun it is. So it's my goal to help others with that as well.
Okay. So you became more confident since you've been podcasting, or was it a little bit before, or?
So when I was growing up, I wasn't very confident at all. I look confident. I have tattoos. You know, I've had nice things. I work out, so I have muscle. And a lot of people assume I am confident. So that's one of the reasons that I try to be super vulnerable and super transparent in letting people know that what's on the outside is kind of a front for what's on the inside. And not only is that important when it comes to you showing other people, but when it comes to you knowing yourself. What you see in the mirror is a reflection. What is inside of you is something that you have to search for and dig for and really, really be familiar with, because every single action that you have ever taken started as a thought. So you have to change the way you think in order to change the way you live, and then your life will change. That is one of the mottos of the podcast.
So how do you teach this then? How do you change their views on people, and how do you change the people who are actually looking tough from the outside but very close in the inside? How do you change them?
So I use my story to change people, because I firmly believe that in order to help somebody change, you have had to go through that change yourself. The best way to teach somebody something is to have learned it yourself. So when I was 26 years old, I had all of the things that any 26-year-old man would think he wanted. By all outside standards, I was a success. I had a beautiful girlfriend. I had a high-paying job. I had the body of my dreams. I had a brand new car, a brand new apartment. I had everything that you could possibly want. But when my girlfriend left me, because I was anxious, because I was depressed, because I wasn't confident, I lacked self-esteem, I realized that I had put so much emphasis and so much value on external things, like my car. My car doesn't make me a good person. My car doesn't make me successful. It makes me look successful. So when I lost my girlfriend and I started to struggle with money because my bills doubled when she left me, when I really lost all of the results, I had to look at myself. I had to look at myself and realize, you've been hiding from this anxiety. You've been hiding from this lack of confidence. You've been hiding from this self-esteem. You've been hiding from everything, and you've been relying on these nice things to make you happy. So I didn't know what happiness was for me. Now, that's when I first got into personal development. Now, I say that a lot of people have the misfortune of hitting rock bottom. I found out that rock bottom has a basement. So after this happened, I got into personal development, and I remember laying in bed one night, and I think I watched a video on positive affirmations that night. So when I was laying in bed that night, just picture this, my head's against the pillow, and I said to myself, this is the year that I am going to make the most money I have ever made in my life, Morgan. I am going to make $100,000. I am going to do this. And that year was the craziest year of my life. 2 weeks after I made that affirmation, I said to God or the universe, whatever it is that you believe in, whatever it is that the listeners believe in. After that, I traveled for the next 10 out of 12 months up and down the East Coast of the United States, working as a construction foreman. I was only home 8 days out of the month. I was only home on the weekends. Every other day I was in a hotel in New Jersey or a hotel in New York or Connecticut or Virginia, all over the place. And at the end of the year, I looked at my bank statement and I finally made $100,000. I finally made what I said I was going to make. I proved everybody wrong, but nothing changed inside of me. Nothing changed. I wasn't any more confident. I didn't have any more belief. So I was laying in bed one night and I remember thinking to myself, no matter where you're laying, no matter how nice your bed is, no matter how beautiful the person next to you is, no matter how much money you have in your bank account, no matter what the car is in your garage, nothing will change unless you change what's up here. And that's how Hyperconscious was born. That's how the podcast was born. I started going into the podcast as a passion. And right after I realized I wanted to help people become hyperconscious, I started having this inner conflict. And the next year started the same way. We were on track to make just as much money, if not more, but I had this inner turmoil to the point where I started going to work later and later. I started calling out way more. I started skipping work. I didn't want to be there anymore, but I kept having to travel because I was a foreman. I was the head of the company. I had to do these things. And it got to the point where I was in a crusty hotel room in New Jersey. I was sitting on the edge of the bed. It was probably 5:45 in the morning. I'm lacing up my work boots. And the way I explained it is I couldn't turn the noise off in my head. Picture 10 TVs on at the same time, but they're all on different channels. And there's just all this noise and you can't turn it off. And the voices are telling me, you're a failure. You can't leave this company. You're stuck here. If you leave here, you're not going to make any money. You don't have a college degree. People are going to judge you. People are going to think you're crazy. And I didn't believe I could succeed as a podcaster. So all of these voices, all of these thoughts, all of these negative beliefs left me sitting on the edge of this bed. And the only thing I could think to myself was, I'd rather be dead. And when I look back on that moment and I sit in that pain of, wow, everything got to this point where I would rather be dead than living the life I'm living, that's a dark place to be. That was my rock bottom basement moment. And looking back, it is definitely the worst day of my life, but it also was the best day of my life because I learned that I wanted to be the person that I needed when I was at my lowest point. And even more than that, I want to be the person who can prevent that person from getting to their lowest point. So that is my story. And that's that is what I use to help others. I use the fact that if I can do it, number one, if I can do it, anybody can. That's number one. But number two, I also have been really, really deep into personal development over the last few years. Every single day, I'm learning, I'm growing, and I've been fortunate enough to interview some of the most successful people in the world. So I use what I know and what has worked for me. I use what other people have done and is what has worked from them through books and podcasts and those things. And when I get to learn from people in the podcast, I use that. And I happen to have some amazing mentors and masterminds who really, really help me grow. They're always pushing me to the next level. So it all depends on the person and what their goals are. But my first thing is always to get clear and become aware on who you actually are and what the story you're telling yourself is, because we're all telling ourselves a story. It just depends on how far off that actual story is.
Yeah. So sometimes, like you had this girlfriend story. So your girlfriend left you and he made you realize a lot of things and it went downhill from there. But some other people, they don't have those kind of shaker moments. They don't have, it's just a very long, slow journey to this rock bottom basement. How do they see kind of the light of the tunnel? How do they see, okay, now I have to wake up and I know that it's not good what I'm doing and I need to change something? How do they do it?
It's very hard because most human beings require a high level of pain in order to facilitate a big change. You have to think, if things are really bad, you're willing to take a big risk to make things really good. A lot of people are floating along where they're unhappy, but they're not unhappy enough to make a change. And that is the place where a lot of people live. And the analogy I always use is this. People will go to work on Monday and they'll have the worst day ever. They'll say, I am not coming back to this place. This was the worst day I've ever had at work. The problem is they come back Tuesday and that courage and the pain has worn off. So they're not going to quit. They would have quit yesterday if they were going to do it. When the pain is great enough, you will make that choice. You will make that decision. You will make that change. If somebody hasn't gone through that, there's a couple things they can do. One, again, becoming unbelievably clear and aware of where you are in your life is unbelievably important. You have to sit down and figure out, where am I in my life? Where have I been in my life? Where do I want to go in my life? And what is stopping me from getting there? I think that clarity is one of the biggest things that people are missing, because we get so caught up in this day-to-day of going to the office, to pay for this car that we don't drive because we're at the office, to live in this house that we barely are in because we're in the office or we're doing something else. I think people have to get clear on, why are you actually doing what you're doing? And if you can get clear on that, I think having a coach is the biggest game changer for people for a couple of different reasons. If you are like I was and you're very low when it comes to confidence and self-esteem, you need somebody to hold you accountable. Mm-hmm. You need somebody to say, these are the things you should do this week, and I guarantee you'll have a better week. That's what a lot of people need. Most people need accountability and they need a coach, but other people need perspective. Other people need to have a coach or somebody in their life, maybe a mentor, who has already done what they've done. They need that person to reach down and say, hey, look, I know you think everything's good, but you just told me you were miserable. What would have to change in order for you to be happy? What would have to change in order for this to be the best year of your life? What would have to change in order for you to be fulfilled? Like, what is your purpose? What is your passion? So I think if you haven't had the rock bottom moment, get around people who are living their dreams, get around people who are happy and fulfilled, and that will start to rub off on you. And then don't be afraid to ask yourself the hard questions. Don't be afraid to answer them properly, but also don't avoid questions from other people, because answering those questions is such a game changer.
Yeah. Like, I know that most of your audience is a very feminine audience.
Yeah.
Do you know why?
I think I know why. So a couple of reasons. When I first started the podcast, like I started the podcast before Alan and I joined up, and I wasn't very confident. I think I was very feminine. Honestly, I think people, like especially women, could relate to me because I was a man, but I didn't have an ego. I think that's one of the reasons. I've never been somebody with a high ego who was cocky or arrogant. That's never been my thing. But another thing is, I think it's because we're vulnerable. I think it's because I own my truth. Like I've cried on the podcast. I cry with my girlfriend when we watch sad movies and when we argue. I think one of the reasons is because I'm transparent and I'm vulnerable, and I don't want this to sound arrogant or cocky, but I think a lot of women want that in a man. They want a man who owns his craft, but they want a man who's also in touch with his vulnerable side. And I think that makes us human. I could sit here and say, I'm a badass. I've never cried a day in my life. Nothing scares me, but that's not true. And I think a lot of people do that. So I think it's because we're very transparent, we're very vulnerable, and we're very authentic. That's what I like to think, at least.
Do you think it's hard as a man to, well, I know you kind of answered that question by saying that no, because you are vulnerable, making it think that women are vulnerable, but I know what you mean. And that you're sensitive and, like you know how to be in touch with your feelings. But is it not hard, because now it's two men, because yeah. But is it not hard as men to advise mostly women on the podcast, like most of the time?
I think it's a lot easier because when I first started coaching people, all of my clients were women. So it just, I don't know, it just became normal for me. Like I admire my girlfriend so very much because my phone is filled with women's numbers, because that's mostly what my clients are. And our team, Alan and I have a team that works with us, Amy and Tiffany, they're both women, and we're surrounded by women. But I think it's because, like I said, I think it's because it's who we are. I think it's a reflection of who we are, and it's easier than you think. Yeah. At this point, I think it's because I've done it for long enough, and I've seen the benefits of what happens when you believe in somebody, regardless of whether they're male or female. We have seen so many incredible changes from people that I almost don't even think about it. If you're a client of mine, you're a client of mine. I don't care, black, white, purple, man, female, whatever. It doesn't bother me. So I think to me, my mission is to change the world. And I'll start changing anybody I can, anybody who wants help, anybody who wants to change themselves. And I think that it gives me a very unique perspective, for sure, working with women. And it also helps me in my intimate relationship as well. So it's definitely, it's interesting, it's unique, but it is amazing, for sure.
So what you're trying to achieve through your podcast is actually for people to follow their dreams and to be confident enough to actually go for it. But imagine if you have someone who is not happy, but they don't know what is their dream, because they don't know if it's achievable, or so they don't even think like that. They don't think, okay, those are my goals, this is my dream that I want to reach by that age or whatever. How do you guide those people when they don't know? They just feel bad.
There's a couple of questions I ask. So if I was to ask you, if you came to me and said, hey, I'm not happy at this 9 to 5, there has to be more to life than this, I would say, Morgan, if you woke up tomorrow and money was never an issue again, you never had to worry about money, everything was taken care of, what would you do? And I wait, just like this. And then that's when things start to come up. Like, well, I love working with animals. Cool, write it down. I love art. Cool, write it down. Right now, we're not trying to find a way. We're trying to find a destination. We're not trying to design the course. We're trying to find a destination, right? So for me, if you asked me what I would do if money didn't matter, I'd be doing this. I'd be podcasting.
Yeah.
Because when I quit my job, I didn't have an income. I left $100,000 on the table so I could make zero. But this is an interesting thing, and this is how you know you found your thing. I used to work so I could have all of the nice things and I could feel good about myself. Now I learn and I invest in myself so I can feel good about myself, which I do. So now I can teach other people how to feel good about themselves, and now the results are coming. It's just different. It's just backwards. So when you're more focused on evolving and growing as a person and yourself, that means you're doing your thing, because you know at the end of the day, you can only grow your message, your business, your impact, your legacy to the level that you grow. Right? So that's how you know you're doing your thing, if you're focused on yourself. But I ask questions. What do you like doing? If you could do, what do you talk about when you're with your friends? Like, we talk about design a lot. Okay, have you ever done design? Well, yeah, I used to do it back in high school. Why'd you stop? Oh, my parents told me I'd never make any money. Okay, cool. Write that down. That might be something. So it's all about exploring the options. We're not talking about limiting beliefs here. Like, does it seem far-fetched that you're going to start your own company next year? Maybe, but you'll never start your company if we don't write it down and at least explore it, right? So just give me some ideas of what it is that you think, number one, you might be good at. Number two, especially, you'd enjoy, you'd be fulfilled at. What is your dream life? Yeah. What do you really want? So I asked a bunch of questions, because if you ask enough questions, you're going to get the answer eventually. And it's about breaking down those walls. Like, even when I asked you and then paused, I guarantee you started thinking about it. Not only do you want to ask yourselves or get people to ask you that question, but you have to answer the question truthfully. You have to answer it. You could easily say, like I did, I'd love to be a podcaster full time, but I'm afraid. I don't know how I'm going to make a living. How am I going to make a living as a podcaster? How am I going to be a speaker? I've never spoken before. How am I going to be a coach? I've never coached before. And that's just the beginning. Just because you've never done it doesn't mean you can't. Now, if you don't want to do it, that's different. But if you want to do something, you can practice, you can learn, you can create the habits, you can do anything that you're willing to work for. I firmly believe that. But it comes to the questions.
So how did you learn?
So coaching, it's funny. I've been coaching since I was probably 23. I just didn't know it. I was helping. People would reach out to me because I would post something positive on Instagram. This was before Instagram even had Instagram stories. This was back in the day. So I was using Snapchat a lot. So people would reach out to me and say, hey, I'm going through this. And now that you asked, it was always women who reached out about relationships. It was almost always women who reached out to me about relationships. And I think it's kind of an unconscious competency. I think it's just something that I've been good at. And then I just practice more and more because I feel so good helping others. Yeah. But I know what helped me. And I think that's the key. I always go back to what helped me. And coaching it can be difficult, but at the end of the day, it's this. I need to help you come up with what your goal is, and then I can help you reverse engineer your goal. That's kind of what coaching is. I'm giving you a perspective that you don't have. So if you said to me, Kevin, I want to get in better shape. All right, cool, awesome, great. I can give you 5 things right now that will get you in better shape. But you have to do them every day, Morgan. Just do them every day, and I guarantee you see results. When you wake up, weigh yourself. Perfect, do that. Track your calories and make sure you're eating under what you need to. Make sure you're drinking 96 ounces of water. Everything can be broken down into a daily system of success that you become your habits. So if you're practicing speaking, you'll become a better speaker. Yeah. If you're practicing sitting on the couch and watching Netflix, you will get worse. You won't get better. So for me, I became a speaker because I had done 220 episodes of the podcast, and Alan said, hey, have you ever thought of being a speaker? And my initial reaction was, hell no. There is no way I'm getting on stage in front of people. I've never done this. And then I did it. And I did my first speech, and everybody said I did an amazing job because I usually do better than I think I'm going to do, because that self-esteem, it fights with me sometimes. And I just practiced. Anything I'm good at now is because I spent years in the dark practicing. And I think that's one of the goals of the podcast, to pull back the curtain on what it really takes. My first podcast, Morgan, was terrible. It is so bad. It is the worst thing you have ever heard in your entire life. But if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be doing this. It all starts with the first episode, the first gym session, the first painting, the first house, whatever it is. You're going to suck at first. But what do you love enough to stick in it? So practice. Practice makes progress, not perfect. If you want to be better at anything, practice.
You know, sometimes we say that money makes it easier, you know, like even for me, for example, I'm just going to give myself as an example. You know, I would love to do this podcast full time, even travel the world and interview people around the globe, and with my daughter on my back, you know, just like backpacking with her and just doing this full time. But, you know, traveling is expensive, especially with a kid, or if this kid has to go to school, someone to look after that child. Podcasting is, you don't really get any money unless you know how to do it, and if you have like a big audience and all of this. So I can't really do podcasting full time as my main job. I'm going to say, just to make you happy right now.
Thank you.
But, you know, like a lot of people feel this way. Or, you know, if someone wants to, I don't know, start a hot dog truck business, you know, like selling hot dogs, you know, you need money to buy the truck and make it hot dog friendly. You know, all of this. So how, you know, when you feel really bad, like you know, like you had this really negative mindset in this hotel room, and you feel really bad, and you're like, but I can't do what I want to do, and I actually can't get out of my situation because I don't have the money. How do you do it?
You have to get around people who believe in you. Because the thing is, I'm not good enough. So when I first started my podcast, there is no way you would have ever had me on your show. One of my goals when I started my podcast was to be on other people's podcasts. The problem is I wasn't good enough, right? I wasn't good enough to make money podcasting. I make money podcasting now. You could too, eventually. But it depends, right? There's a couple different things. I had good circumstances where I saved up some money. I'm single, I didn't have a family, and I lived with my friends, so rent was cheap. So I will admit that the circumstances that I had are a lot different than a lot of people's. But it's not always about your resources. Sometimes it's about your resourcefulness. So one thing I heard a lot when I started a podcast was you have to have 10,000 listens per episode to at least be able to advertise. And I said, no, I don't want to do that. I'm not doing that. Nobody's going to advertise on my podcast. I'm going to advertise for myself. That's how I got one-on-one coaching clients. That's how we get speeches. That's how we get people to the website. We are advertising ourselves. So anybody could do that, right? You could be a life coach. You could be a motivational speaker if those things are in alignment for you. And then that's what you plug on your podcast. Now, I think this is what happens. People say, I could never do that for a living. I don't make enough money. No, the thing is, you can't do that right now. You wouldn't make enough money. You have to, Oprah has this quote. You know Oprah?
Yes.
She says you have to do what you have to do until you can do what you want to do. So people see me now podcasting full time, but I podcasted for a year while I was traveling up and down the East Coast. I podcasted from hotel rooms. It's just a matter of, are you willing to put in the work? Are you willing to invest long term? You might not be able to do it now, and that's fine. But if it's something that you're passionate about, find a way to supplement your income and make sure you're taking care of you and your little one while you get better, while you master this process, while you learn from people who are ahead of you, while you teach other people. So I think that's the thing, is it's circumstances, but your circumstances aren't going to be the same in 2 years if you continue growing and if you change your habits. If we look at where we're at and say, I want to be one of the best speakers ever. I want to be one of the best public speakers ever of all time. I can't base that off of just where I am. I have to base that off of the belief that I know I can make it better, and I can get better, and I can get better. And I think that's what people have to do. When you start a business, you don't make money right away. but you might have to do something on the side until you can go all in on business. So I think there's different ways to do it. Maybe stay at your job, but form an exit strategy. Be extremely stringent and save as much money as humanly possible. Then go all in, or get a flexible job where you can work, pay the bills, get health insurance, put food on the table, and then in your time grind, learn more about podcasting or design or dog shelters, whatever it is. So there's a couple of different ways to do it, but you got to be all in your mind.
Yeah. What's your best advice for women who wants to be successful? Because, I think for men, it's not all of them, but for some of them, it's easier. It's easier because they have more support and people take them seriously. What's your best advice for women who want to be successful and want to start their own business or ask for raise at their jobs or, have more confidence? What would you advise them?
I would tell these women to stop listening to people, especially men. Stop listening to people telling you can't run a business, especially if they're men, because more women now than ever are running businesses, starting businesses, being high up business executives. Women are very good leaders because they are more emotionally connected. And if you can be women like to enjoy the journey more than men a lot of times, or at least a masculine and feminine energy, right? That's kind of the basis of it. Usually the masculine energy is go get it, do it, master this, be the best in the world, where the feminine energy likes to enjoy things. They like the smaller things in life. They like to be present. But you can learn either of those things. But women are naturally better at being present. They're naturally better at connecting. They're naturally better at being able to understand somebody's emotions. So if you're a woman, I would say develop yourself in terms of personal development. Start reading leadership books. For sure, 100%. Start reading leadership books. Start reading business books. I don't see any reason other than limiting beliefs. And again, I'm not a woman, so I've never experienced what it's like to be a woman. So I won't say anything concrete like just do it, it's easy. I don't know that it is, and I understand that there are some pressures put on women that aren't put on men. I 100% understand that to the best of my capability. But just get good at whatever it is you want to do. It's the limiting beliefs that are going to hold you back more than anything else. Because if you have undying self-belief, Rosa Parks, way back when, sat on the bus when they told her she couldn't sit there, and she stayed there. She had undying self-belief saying, I'm going to do this, regardless of the outcome. I think if a woman has an undying level of self-belief, she's no different than a man. So my advice to women is develop yourself to the point where you're ready to be around people who lift you up. Don't spend any time with women that gossip about other women. Don't spend any time with guys who are not good people, who don't treat you like you're human, who treat you like you're less because you're a woman. Don't spend any time with those people. You have to develop yourself first. You have to get out of your comfort zone. There's so many things to do. But develop yourself, because if you want to be a leader, the only way to develop leaders is to develop yourself first. So that would be my advice. Just when it comes to building confidence, that's something that I speak about. I've done speeches on that. Confidence comes with competence. So it took me 150 episodes, Morgan, before I felt competent and confident as a podcaster. So if you're a woman or a man who lacks confidence, it's because you probably aren't competent in that department. If you're somebody who lacks confidence when it's leading meetings, that rhymed, it wasn't supposed to. That means you have to lead more meetings. That's what it means. You have to get out of your comfort zone and do the things that you don't feel confident doing because you haven't built the confidence yet. I'm very competent and confident in the gym. Why? I've been there so many times. But if I was to go salsa dancing with my girlfriend, which I'm going to do for sure, I have zero confidence when it comes to that. Zero. And because I have zero competence, I have no proof that I can do well. And that's what this is. I've been interviewed before. So for me, I'm excited about this. This is awesome. I get to talk about the things I'm passionate about. At one point, this was out of my comfort zone because I didn't have the competence yet. So confidence comes with competence. Practice the things where you lack confidence, and I guarantee you will become more confident in time. You just have to stick around. You have to have a reason to stick around.
The question I like to ask is about success, because I think success is a very broad word and it means different things to different people. And do you feel successful? And what is your view on success?
That is a great question. So recently I had this moment. I was walking around my kitchen, and I shouldn't say recently. This was probably 6 months ago. I was walking around the kitchen and thinking to myself, I remember when all I cared about was what I had. That's all I cared about. And now I care way more about who I am. And that, to me, that is success. So yes, I definitely feel successful. My definition of success is to be the best, most evolved, highest quality version of myself. So I always ask myself, what would best version of Kevin do in this situation? Would he hold the door? Absolutely. You better hold the door then. Would he get up when the alarm goes off? Yes, absolutely. I think, like you said, success is a very broad term, just like love is a broad term, right? That's something else too. Just like dreams. Everybody has different dreams. For me, success is living my own life, being my own boss, but being able to do whatever I want, whenever I want, and also change the world through telling my story. So I think I feel unbelievably successful, the most I ever have. There's still way more to go. I have way more levels I want to go. But another way you can tell is when you ask me, what do I want out of my future? I want a multiplied version of my current reality. I don't want anything to change. I just want things to get better and grow and bigger impact and more money and bigger impact and better relationships. So I would say, when I say I'm living the dream, like I say that all the time. People say, how you doing? I say, I'm living the dream. They laugh at me, but the thing is, I mean it. I genuinely mean it.
Wow. I want that too. That's incredible. Well,
I appreciate that.
That's great, because I think we need more people like that, to actually give a positive message. And, I think we live in this world that money is so important, and we kind of lose ourselves in like studying, being in debt after studying, and doing a job because we need to get a job, but we don't think about what do we really want to do. When we're in France, for example, when we're 17, 16, we already need to know what direction our studies are going to go at university, and there is no way we can't go to university or have like a practical job. And I think it's very stressful. And when you're 16, you don't think about yourself in a deeper level. You just think, oh, okay, well, I want to have a car when I'm 18, and I want to have a good house, and I want to party and see my friends. And and I think after you finish your bachelor and your master's or whatever you're studying, then it's kind of, you feel like it's too late and you're stuck, And I think it's important to have people like you and that tell us, no, it's okay. You can actually change careers, and you can read books and listen to mentors and coaches to decide what you really want to do and what makes you happy. And I'm the first one I need to hear this. So
well, we can talk after. I would love to help you in any way I can. I think one of the points I want to make, though, so like you said, I do believe the world needs more people who spread positivity and the message that you can grow, you can evolve, you can change. But I am stressed out. I do deal with stress for sure.
Yeah.
I still have problems. I still have issues. I still have stress. It's just different problems. It's different issues. It's different stress. It's more in alignment with what I want. One of my stressors right now is writing a speech. I'm giving a speech on Tuesday to a college in our state. Now, that's a great stress to have because it's something I'm doing. But when I say I'm living the dream, that doesn't mean that I don't have nightmares occasionally. That just means that I know I'm doing what I want to do. And you're always going to have some form of stress, because I like to put it like this. If you're not stressing about something, you're probably not growing. And growth is non-negotiable. If you're not growing, you're shrinking. And that's just the way it goes. So I'm always focused on growth. So I'm always out of my comfort zone almost all the time. And I do say that with a little bit of a warning to people. Don't always be out of your comfort zone, but you have to, even when you're chasing your dreams, you have to accept and expect there to be stress, because there's going to be. It's part of the game, no matter what you're doing.
But if you say that you're living the dream, why do you need growth? Because you just said that if you don't grow, you shrink. But can't you just stay at the same level? Because, if you're really living the dream, but the thing is, like earlier you were like, oh, I was happy with I thought I was happy with my beautiful car and blah, blah, blah. But, the more you have, the bigger worries you have, like financial and loss, the more you have, the bigger the loss can be. And so why growing? Why keep growing and have more money and all of this if you're living the dream right now?
It's not just the money. So I am living the dream. I think the journey should be a dream too, because theoretically you never reach the end. I want to be the best podcaster ever. What are the chances that somebody calls me up and says, hey, Kev, you're the best podcaster ever? We have an award, we're sending it to you, right? It doesn't work like that. So in my mind, the only reason that I'm so focused on growth is because I still got a long, long, long way to go. If you want to change the world, you really, really, really got to be good at something. Not good, you have to be the best in the world at it. So I think that your goal is going to determine the journey. And then your mindset and your perspective is going to determine how you view the journey. So yes, I am 100%, I'm living the dream, but I want this dream to keep growing and evolving. Like I said, I want my future to be a multiplied version of this, which means I have to be a multiplied version of myself. And progress equals happiness. That's another thing. Tony Robbins says that. Progress equals happiness. That's why so many people don't feel like they're happy. They feel stuck because they're not making progress. Well, you have to first decide on what do I want to make progress on. So I think it's dangerous when people say you don't really maintain. You kind of can't, because time makes everything worse. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I really like that quote actually, because it's accurate.
Yes.
All right, I think we're done.
Okay.
Do you want to add? Do you want to add anything?
I would love to just tell people that they can find me at Never Quit Kid on Instagram. If they like the way I think and I talk, Alan and I do this 4 times a week on the Hyperconscious Podcast. You can go to the hyperconsciouspodcast.com. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're on SoundCloud, and we're on YouTube. And if there is anybody out there who is looking for speakers to help change the world, Alan and myself love traveling. We love meeting you guys. And our goal is to not only inspire and motivate people for a day or an hour or a week, but we're trying to change people's lives. So that is the last thing I'd like to say.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see you in London very soon.
You will. We're setting the intention. It'll happen, I promise.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And I'll speak to you after the cameras are off.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Morgan.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Bye.